You're listening to Beyond the Measure, Episode 9. Listen as I, a young composer, and my wife, a young choir director, interview other music educators in order to gain insight into their own success in the classroom. We have a lot to learn, and we want you to learn with us. No matter your age, ensemble, or experience, this is the ideal podcast for music educators, composers, and students alike. So join us as we go beyond the measure. Hey everybody, it's Christian. Welcome to the next episode of Beyond the Measure. I wanted to insert this little intro here at the beginning just to kind of quickly explain, in case you hadn't noticed, why there was kind of a 2-week hiatus from the podcast the past couple weeks. We weren't able to release an episode the past 2 Mondays, and we're even actually having to release this one a little bit late as well. But just to kind of explain what happened, and in case you're kind of confused kind of with the timeline and kind of how we're describing stuff that's going on within the episode, we were going to release this episode that you're about to hear a couple weeks ago, which would have been like a week after Kara got out of school. And I had edited almost the whole episode when suddenly my audio in one of in my audio track in the recording, all the audio just disappeared. Now the original audio file I still had, but all of the edits I had done, it didn't work. Like since my audio was gone, it didn't matter that I'd edited everything. I would have had to go back, reinsert my audio, and try to cut it exactly the same way as I had cut it before, and it would have been a long, grueling process. So I realized that I just needed to re-edit the episode from the beginning, basically start from scratch. So at the time, I thought I would have enough time to do that, but then, like the next day, was whenever we left for our trip to Hawaii, which you might kind of hear us talk about in, I think, next week's episode, as if it hasn't happened yet. But we went to Hawaii. I was gonna edit the podcast episode like Sunday night, which was, right before it was supposed to come out. That's when we got to Hawaii. And then we got to the hotel, and it looked like all of the audio was gone. Like not just the audio that I talked about before, but like even the original copy of the audio that I'd saved as a duplicate, just in case something like this were to happen. It looked like all of it had been gone. I double checked, kind of like underneath the file settings and everything to see if maybe the original audio files were still there. I just couldn't open them, but it looked like they were just completely gone. So by that point, I believe we had already kind of taken a week while I was working on going to re-edit this original episode, only then to come to Hawaii and find out that it still wasn't going to work. We had already recorded next week's episode as well, but it still would have taken just as long to edit it. So we decided we didn't want to have to stress about editing and doing all of that while we were on our vacation in Hawaii, of all places. That just didn't seem like a good idea. So we just wanted to go ahead and just take that time, not have to stress about it. But now we're back, and thank goodness I realized that I actually did still have the original audio from this episode you're about to hear. So it was kind of a weird back and forth, didn't really know what was going on, but long story short, here it is, it's here. I was able to re-edit it, so enjoy this week's episode. We don't actually have a guest on the show. This is just me and Kara kind of reflecting on her first year of teaching now that it's completely over. We go through a lot of things that she feels like she did good on, things that she feels like she could have improved upon, and a lot of other fun stuff as well. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and we'll be going back to our regular schedule. So thank you for your patience over the past couple weeks as we've kind of had to deal with all of this weird technical difficulties that have been going on. But without further ado, here is this week's episode with me and Kara reflecting on her first year of teaching.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Measure. This is Kara, and I am here with
Christian.
So today is a different kind of episode. We're going to be taking just 1 week off from having any guests. So you're just going to hear me and Christian kind of talk and everything. So
yes, and I am sick, as you can probably tell from the sound of my voice, but that's also kind of part of the reason we don't have a guest this week is because, I didn't want to expose anyone. It's I don't really know what it is. It's not COVID, so that's good. But I'm feeling better than I did past couple of days. So I'm gonna try not to talk as much Kara will for this episode. But, well, one big exciting thing that's happened to us this week is that we have gotten a new puppy in our house. Kara, tell us a little bit about her.
Okay. So we had no intention of getting a dog. It's kind of a crazy story. So exactly a week ago that we're recording this, was the last day of school for me. And on the last day of school, these students brought like a whole litter of puppies that they were trying to get rid of for free. And they were out in the front of the school, and I was conveniently there, so giving students popsicles on the last day of school. And then I saw the puppies, and of course I had to go over and look at them and pet them and love on them. So I got one of the puppies. It wasn't originally the one that we have now, but I was just holding one of them, and they were like, "Oh, you want her? You want them? You want them?" I'm like, "Oh no, I can't. We don't. We live in an apartment. It's not practical to have a dog in this time or in this season of our life." And then I was out there for maybe 20-30 minutes, just kind of loving on each dog, and then I finally got a hold of the puppy that we have now, and I was sitting down like on a bench with some of my students, and I look around to give the puppy back to these students. Mind you, the students, I don't know these people. Like I don't have them in my class. I don't even know their names. So I'm looking around for these students to give the puppy back to them, and they're gone. So they're like out of sight. And so they essentially abandoned these puppies that were being held by all these people. And so I was like, well, this is interesting. While Christian was at his sister's graduation, I called him and was like, "Hey, can we please keep this puppy? Please, 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 please." And he's like, I don't know yet. I have to see this pup. We got to talk about it. And I was like, yeah, of course we do. But for the time being, I have to keep this puppy and like foster it. And so I still had some work to do and kept her in my office while I was still doing some work. And here we are. We have a puppy.
And so now she is about 2 months old. She's an Australian Shepherd with a mix of something else. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out whenever we go to the vet. They'll give us a better
idea.
Yeah.
And what did we name her?
We named her Lady.
So, yeah. So that's our fun, exciting news. This is kind of separate, but I got a brand new kalimba when I was down in Austin, and it's like my favorite thing now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like the little African, kind of like a thumb piano, and it's like wooden, and you like kind of pluck these little metal, things that are sticking out from it, and it just makes a nice little ding, 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 ding noise, and I don't know, I just like it. It's kind of therapeutic for me to play.
If you don't know what it looks like Mr. Lunt from VeggieTales.
Yeah, the one I got specifically, because it's like made out of a gourd, which is what Mr. Lunt is, but we were talking a lot about that, but I think a lot of them are actually like rectangular and stuff, but anyways. Really? Yeah, but anyways, we should get on to the actual episode. Yeah. what we're here to talk about. Well, I guess we've already been kind of talking about new life changes that have been happening, but there is one big one that has now happened. Well, first of all, Kara has officially finished her first year of teaching, so congratulations, Kara. Pat yourself on the back. And so I'm really proud of her. I know a lot of other people are really proud of her for being able to do that. And if you're a first-year teacher listening to this and you've just finished your first year, then congratulations.
Yes, you made it.
Yes, that is amazing. That is great.
That's probably the worst years behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, like literally every single person we've talked to about first year teaching, like everybody says that second year teaching is way easier. That doesn't mean it's actually easy, but teaching isn't ever really easy, but it's way easier than the first year. But Kara, tell us about what's happening next year.
Well, I'll just go right out and say it, and I can talk about like how it came to be later. So I've accepted a new position. So I will no longer be working in Clyde. I'll be working at Madison Middle School in Abilene ISD.
Yay.
Yeah, so I'll be the middle school choir director there.
Yeah, so you're going from teaching high school and middle school in a very small town to just middle school in a larger town. So that'll
and the
be
program is about like double mine as far as like middle school. I have about like a little bit over 100. I think when I counted like 109 students at the end of the semester, which is very large for a small district.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that Madison has about like 200 to 250. I might be wrong. I might be wrong about that, but it's significantly larger.
So it's probably at least like double the amount.
Yes,
you think? Wow.
for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So your middle school program amount of students is at least going to be doubled, right? Wow. So that's going to be a big change, but at the same time, it'll be kind of interesting for you to just kind of focus on middle school on its own. How are you feeling in regards to that?
I think I feel pretty good. The advantage of like working this year with middle school and high school students, and like getting to know the repertoire and like learning techniques and stuff is you get to figure out what you like better. And now, of course, high school repertoire is probably going to be more fun to do for at least the director or the conductor than it is to rehearse and perform middle school rep. But I ultimately enjoy the middle school age group, I think, a little bit more, especially with how young I am right now. I'm 23. I just turned 23, and there's like a 5-year difference between me and the seniors, which can be really hard. But, maybe whenever I'm older and there's a bigger gap, I might, transition to high school, but that's going to be a long way away. So I'm not like super anxious about going to just middle school since I already, have an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah. And this was definitely a natural next step for you, just kind of from where you're at, kind of going from a smaller town to a larger town. But yeah, that is true. Having that experience of both middle and high school was really beneficial for you, because whatever next opportunities may have come your way, you probably would have been a little bit more prepared for those either way.
Yeah, and if I do ever want to go up to the high school level, I have that on my resume already. And so they might be more likely to choose somebody who has a little bit of high school experience than to choose somebody who, maybe doesn't. Yeah,
and that's something to think about. We kind of talked about this in last week's episode 8 with Brady McNeil's. He talked about just kind of the variety of different ensembles that he directed. He did band and orchestra, and he was also involved with like theater to some degree. I can't remember exactly what he said in regards to that, but
he directed musically, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's right. It was the musical. Yeah, I don't think I think I put in like the description or an email last week that he directed theater, but I think he was actually like, there was like the musical specifically, but either way, yeah, those kinds of opportunities are really beneficial. And I remember last year, whenever you got this position, I mean, you were fresh out of college, and it was kind of like, oh man, going to be going right into both middle and high school. So that was kind of scary, but I think at the same time it kind of balanced out because it was a smaller town, didn't have a huge budget, but it was a very supportive administration and everything. So let's kind of talk about, Kara. I know we kind of talked about this whenever we had our first introductory episodes and you told us a little bit about where you were in the school year, but even that was, that was a couple months ago and a lot has happened even since then. But now that you're officially done and you've wrapped up the school year, I mean, just tell us about, what kind of thoughts you have just after all of it and some of the biggest things you've learned or advice you have for other people.
Before going into like all of the advice or things that I learned, things that I want to do better, I guess this could also be advice. But the first thing that you need to do, and the first thing that I did, was kind of look back at where I was the very first day of school, August 2021. And I just, no matter how hard I am on myself and how hard I want to like beat myself up for not being the best teacher or whatever, I can't deny that I have grown. There has been growth. So I have to be proud of myself for that I'm a different teacher than I was that very first day. And so that's kind of rewarding to think about, and you just have to remind yourself that, you might not be the best teacher, or you might not think that you're the best teacher. You have to just tell yourself, well, I'm way better than I was the first day.
Yeah. And I think kind of what you're saying there is it's your mindset.
Yeah.
Going into it. And I even remember whenever you first started, and even throughout the year, and it was really easy for you, if you don't mind me saying, it was really easy for you to kind of fall into that trap of like comparing yourself to other veteran teachers that are, in the area. And I think it's just really important to remind yourself that, if you're a young teacher, that, you shouldn't compare where you are to other people. You should compare yourself to where you were before. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm thinking like, wow, literally a year ago, we had just graduated college. So you hadn't even really taught much. I mean, taught any at all. You've been a student teacher, but
yeah, I mean, I taught a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean,
not to the extent.
Yeah, and now here we are on the other side, and it's like you did it. I mean, you did so much. I mean, you did concerts, you did UIL, you did some fundraising, you did some touring around town. You worked with like your show choir and choreographed stuff, and
I can't really take credit for the choreography.
Well, okay, yeah, sure, but you worked with them and everything, and you had to scour every nook and cranny around town to find an accompanist. Oh my gosh. A few times.
I don't have that problem anymore.
Yes, thank goodness. That's one of the benefits of moving to the new district. But yeah, that's something great. Well, so kind of to talk more about those specific things where you feel like you've grown. I mean, what's something that when you think back to when you first started at the beginning of the year, that you feel like, going in, you were like, oh, I don't think I'm good at this, or I don't know how I'm going to do this. And now that you're through, that, oh, I did do this. What are some kind of areas that you feel like that was good with?
That I thought I did well. And
yeah,
I was really worried. I don't know why, but building relationships with students, I was worried like how to go about that. 'Cause I mean, I had some relationships with the students that I student taught with. But again, it was just very hard because I had to wear a mask the whole time.
Yeah.
And you have no idea how much that has an effect. Because I see these, I've seen these former students that I student taught with, they don't recognize me because I had a mask on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I recognize them because they never wore their mask properly. And it's just kind of awkward. But, anyways, I was just worried about, how to build relationships, and it actually became just very easy for me. And I have grown very, very close to my students, and that was the hardest, and I can talk about this, but it was a very hard decision to accept this other position because of the relationships that I built with these students. I had to pray about it a lot because there's pros and cons to both. But I think the pros on the other side outweighed more than where I worked.
Sure.
And the only thing that was really just keeping me from accepting this position was I can't leave these students because I just absolutely adore them. Like, I cried almost every night leading up to the decision. It was very hard.
And I think, like, from what I saw and from what you've told me, I mean, the way that you were able to build those relationships with your students was that you were just yourself.
Yes.
I mean, you didn't try being someone you weren't. I mean, you would just, there were a couple times, you know, before, after concerts, or I think I got to sit in on a class period a couple times for some reason. And you were in there in the classroom and you were just talking to them like you, you know, I mean, you still had authority and everything in what you were doing, but, it just, I could tell it made you very relatable and easy for students to see that. So,
and I think that means a lot to students, is to just be yourself.
Yeah.
Because they're very intuitive. They can tell whenever you are being fake, and things like that. And I know, and some of my high school students who are more mature, they've even said that to me, like, oh, we just love how, you know, you're so authentic and real. And like, cause with my, and maybe this wasn't a good thing, or I don't know, but sometimes I would just tell them whenever I was struggling, not personally, but just being real, saying like, hey, it's just kind of bringing back to light, like, teachers are human too. We don't have everything together.
Yeah.
And they knew I was a first year teacher. And so a lot of them had a lot of, empathy and sympathy and patience with me. Yeah. And so kind of telling them about that kind of built our relationship a little bit better.
Yeah, that's great. I remember my voice teacher, Dr. Hollingsworth at HSU. I always remember during our voice studio time, one year, for some reason that's just always stuck with me and he was talking about, you know, in the aspect, you know, through the lens of performing, but this also goes with teaching and a lot of other things, is I remember he said, vulnerability breeds trust with your audience.
Yes.
And I mean, that's it. I mean, because if they can see who you really are, then, I mean, they're going to really appreciate that. And I think they definitely saw that with you. And obviously that doesn't mean you have to, share
no,
every
of
little,
course not.
yeah. And
that's not what I did.
Yeah. There should be boundaries, of course. Yeah. But
I would tell them whenever I was having a bad day, like,
yeah, hey,
they'll be like, hey, Miss Fortner, how you doing? I'm like, it's not been a great day. And they'd be like, oh, why? And I'd be like, oh, my 7th, 8th grade boys, blah, blah, blah. Or something. Yeah. Or like, oh, I'm having car troubles or something like that. Because that just kind of, again, sheds light into their eyes, saying like, oh, well, yeah, she's human too. So
the relational aspect of teaching was one of the main things you were worried about going in.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be really, really good. Really good for you. What else? Is there anything in regards to like logistically or just as far as actual teaching goes that you can remember?
I think UIL. I was
UIL.
Super scared about UIL, and how to like just teach that whole process, sight reading and teaching the music. But one thing that really helped me was before I even started, I follow, her name is the Choir Queen on Instagram. It's Jody Koch. She's a middle school teacher. I forget where exactly, but she's in the DFW area. And she has like a lot of resources for teachers, and posts a lot. And so she had like I'm on her like emailing list. And so she emailed whenever it was getting close for UIL prep time, like how she breaks down teaching the repertoire. And that helped me so much because I had no idea where to start. Yeah. Like, of course you teach them solfege, rhythm, stuff like that, but like where, like how long do you stay on each thing? Yeah. And that was when I followed that, I thought it was really successful. The way like I learned it, the way that they learned it, they were very successful and had like a better grasp on what they were learning. So anyways, there's that.
Yeah, having an outline.
Yeah, having an outline helped me better prepare and feel better prepared. Now on the sight reading aspect, because of COVID, they've kind of reduced the requirements on like everybody's sight reading like a level down, because of COVID, like a year off, and a lot of people weren't able to have UIL. And so with my high school group, I gave them sight reading that was harder than what they would see in the sight reading room.
Yep.
And I told them that. I was like, now you're going to see maybe something a little easier than this in the sight reading room, but I'm doing this to prepare you. Because if you're successful at this hard of a reading, then in the sight reading room, you're going to be very successful. And they got all ones. It was perfect reading this is the first and second time. I was like shocked. I didn't really know what to do during the 2-minute period between the second reading. But coming out of it, I was worried about it. But because of my preparation, I think it was a good run for me and for my students, especially because one of my groups that I took, none of them had ever experienced UIL before, and they did fantastic.
Yeah. And I remember you stressing out a lot about a lot of different things, but I feel like one of the main things that helped you was in preparing for those sort of things, and you kind of described that in regards to like the outline and everything, is, obviously just making a plan in general is always good, but even more so, as you're making a plan, it's so easy to get overwhelmed by all of the different things you have to be worrying about, because there's a lot. And if you think about all those different things at the same time, well, then you're never going to get anything done, because that's stressful, right? That's a whole lot. So you have to force yourself to do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And you focus on one thing. And then once that one thing is done, what makes the rest of the load a little bit lighter. And then you can just slowly go through each one.
Yeah. No, I remember whenever I was stressing out about that. That was a different time, not with UIL. It was like end of year stuff. So this was like, I think it was around Easter time, where I was getting really stressed about all of the things that I had to do. And I was like having like a mini breakdown in the car, and Christian was like, just make a list of all the things that you have to do. That's not what you're talking about, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't thinking about that specifically, but just, yeah, that's a good example.
Make a list and like put it in priority, like 1 to 5, what's most pertinent and most important. And then what was the other one? Like,
well, basically it was like, okay, so you make a list of all the different things you have to do, and then you have 2 columns next to each one, and so and you put a number in each one, 1 to 5. And so the first one was which one is most in, 5 being this is super important / needs to be done very soon, and then 1 being it's not that important /
this can wait.
It can wait. And then the second column was how time consuming it's going to be. I think how long it's going to take. So 5 being it's going to take a lot of time to finish it. 1 being it'll be really quick. And then you categorize them first by importance, the importance number, put those in order, and then once those are in order, then order all the 5s by the next column, which is the amount of time and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so when I did that, it helped put things into perspective for me. Some things were not super important, or they were very important but easy to get done. But since everything was all kind of in a jumbled mess in my head, it was hard to see it that way. Everything was important and had to be done immediately in my head. And it's funny that we mentioned that, because I opened my notes app, and that was like the first thing that was open, and I had everything checked off, which was always nice to see.
Yeah, we're both huge list people, which if you're not that kind of person, I mean, unless you have your own system of doing things and it works for you, great. But if you ever struggle with that kind of thing, I mean, just the simple act of writing all the different things you need to do down is so good, because not only does it help you clearly see everything, it also helps you. It takes some pressure off of you because then you don't have to really remember it as much, because I'm not good at remembering stuff.
And it's also just satisfying crossing it off.
Amen to that.
That's why I make lists.
So you can cross stuff off.
Yes.
I prefer putting a little box next to it and then putting a check mark over it.
See, I used to be a checkbox girl, but once I student taught with Mrs. Weeks at Abilene High, and like, this is no advice that she gave me, but this is just something I observed from her. So whenever she made lists, she would just cross it off, like the whole thing. And I don't know, I was like, I'm gonna start doing that. And I did, and I like it a lot better than just a checkbox, because it still looks like it's been done because it's all open. But if you cross the words, it's like,
take that
out of sight, out of mind.
You're killing it.
Yes, it's like killing a bug.
So is there anything else that you just feel, proud at how how well you did on, anything in regards to, teaching?
One more thing is just like, I was worried about choosing the right music for my students. That's both challenging and they can be successful at it. It seemed like every time there's a new concert season or even UIL, my ability to choosing the right rep got even better. Like my fall concert, I don't know these groups. I don't know like what their level of what their ability is musically, and so I just kind of like chose stuff at random and chose things easier. At that time I was like, it's better to choose stuff that's easier than harder for them, and if they get bored of it, then I know what to do for the next season. But I thought I always chose really good rep for them.
I agree.
And not to brag, but on my UIL judging sheets in both my middle school group and my high school group, the judges, either one or two or all of the judges, mentioned like, this is such good rep. This showed off your choir very well.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that made that comment meant a lot to me, because that was something I was worried about.
Yeah, well, and that reflects your knowledge of the capabilities of your choir and what they needed to do. I feel like, I don't know why I'm saying this, but for some reason, I feel like if I was a director, I feel like choosing rep would be like one of my favorite things to do.
It is fun.
It is fun.
Overwhelming though.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be fun to explore, but like, I don't know why, but I love making playlists like on Spotify and like putting all the songs in a specific order and like, oh, this is kind of a nice like variety in putting in this order. So, I don't know. I feel like it'd be like kind of a similar feeling of, oh, okay, so we have this nice slow piece and that kind of goes into this faster one with this style, and then
I think you would enjoy programming.
Yeah, programming, exactly. I think I'd like that. But anyways, one thing I forgot to mention too that I'm excited about as far as you going into this new position is that because you're one thing I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but not only is this just a better step for you as far as kind of where you're at, but it is a stronger program in general.
Yes.
And that's just because Abilene is larger and they have more resources.
And the teacher that's there now, her name's Maddie Jones. She's a really good friend of mine. She's really helped me through this first year of teaching. She's amazing. And she's built this program to be successful. Yeah. Has a reputation of success, like period. And I've observed her classes, and they mean business, like even the students do, which was so impressive. So I have really, really, really big shoes to fill. But also, that being said, like I don't feel like worried about where I'm going, because I know that these students are very knowledgeable because of what she's done. Yeah, that's great. And I'm excited from a composing perspective, just because knowing that you're going to have a strong middle school program, if I'm able to, write any middle school music, it's probably a good chance y'all could at least read through it or check it out. So that's something I'm excited for too, which, by the way, I don't know if I actually mentioned this, but I did recently finally created a
a choral piece for middle school, or at least I wouldn't say necessarily just middle school, but younger choir level. It's called Rising Storm, and there's like SA version, a TB version, and an SAB version. So that was a fun thing for me, and I'm looking forward to making more music for that because I know there's a big need for it.
It's good, and I kind of want to program it. I do.
Well, I won't argue with that.
Let us take a quick break real quick so I can tell you a little bit about this podcast's primary sponsor, which is Christian Fortner Music. That's right, my own music business. This is the primary platform that I use to sell my music, and you can find it at www.christianfortner, that's Fortner, music.com. Now, you may be thinking, oh, I don't know, this guy is a young composer. Does he really know what he's doing? Well, to be honest, none of us composers really know what we're doing, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. But if you want to kind of get an idea of what my music might be like and if it might be a good fit for your ensemble, you can actually get a free copy of music from me. That's right, a free piece of music. This isn't just a study score. This is full score and parts that you can use for your ensemble to perform completely for free. And you can do that by signing up for my mailing list. So if you go to my website, Christian Fortner, that's Fortner, music.com/mailings, you can sign up for my mailing list right there, and you'll get a link in your inbox where you can select a piece of music for either choir, string orchestra, or band. And I should also mention that the choir piece, it can be either an SAB, SA, or TB version. So for any of you out there that are looking for SAB, SA, TB, specific voicings like that, then this might be a good opportunity for you. So yeah, that's about it. Again, if that's something you'd be interested in, just check it out on my website. And now we can get back to the episode.
So you kind of talked about a lot of good things you felt like you did good at and you grew with over this past year. Now, let me ask you, are there any aspects that you feel like maybe you didn't do as well as you feel like you could have, or anything that you would like to do better going into next year?
Yeah. You know it. Like, I'm always wanting to do better. So I'd say the first thing is just like not frequent communication. I guess that's the best way to say it, is frequent communication with parents. That being like a weekly newsletter that you send out, just kind of updating them on events, things that are happening, payments that they need to be like stuff like that. I wasn't very, very consistent with communicating, and I did, but I feel like I could have done a lot better. And something I want to do next year is just taking that extra time to send out a newsletter, so that that the students and parents kind of have like no excuse to be uninformed. Yeah. Like if people say, oh, well, I didn't see where you said that, or when did you ever say that this fee was due? I'm like, well, I sent it out in last week's newsletter. Like there's evidence. Yeah. And instead of having me to rely on the students to just tell their parents word of mouth, which almost never happens. The only students that actually do that are the very, very, very responsible ones, or the parents that like sit them down every night and open their backpack and see what they have.
Yeah. And that gives them something to be expecting as well, because it's kind of on a schedule. And I mean, and that's one of those things that it's kind of funny that I've had to start getting into the habit as well, because I recently started doing a monthly, not a weekly, but monthly, or you said monthly.
No, I said weekly.
Oh, you did say weekly. Okay, yeah.
If I didn't, I meant weekly.
Yeah. For me, I've started a monthly newsletter just for my music business, just telling people kind of what I'm working on and any performances of my works that are coming up, stuff like that. Which, by the way, if you want to get that newsletter, you can sign up at christianfortnermusic.com/mailings. Shameless plug. But, it's really not that much work. It's not a hard thing to do. It takes a little bit of time, maybe an hour at most, depending on what all you need to put in there. And yet sometimes it's still hard for me to make myself sit down and do it. Just because it's one of those things where you don't really think about it after a while, and then it suddenly comes up and it's like, oh poop, I have to do this. Which now that I mention it, I need to write that because it's now June. So I need to write my June newsletter. But yeah, that's a really helpful thing to do. Kind of increases that communication between people, between you and the parents. But it also kind of helps keep you and your program top of mind as well, just so that they're always thinking like, oh yeah, choir, that's going on. That's something my students involved in. So cool. Anything else that you feel like you can do better next year?
This is still on like along the same lines of just, I guess, communication as a whole is what I want to do better. And I don't think I did I could have done better. Not only keeping, parents in the know about what's going on, but also administration, of what's going on. Of course I have to talk to my administration about like really important things, but, just like being intentional and like just going down to the office and just chatting with them for a moment. Because part of this was just, I didn't really have the opportunity to really talk with my administration a lot, and along, like extending that with teachers. I can confidently say I didn't make relationships with teachers to the extent that I wanted to, because I was going from place to place. I felt really isolated. And part of that was because, I was traveling.
Yeah.
But
2 different campuses.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. But, other times I probably could have, eaten lunch in the not the student lounge, the teacher lounge. Even though nobody really eats in there anyways, at least at the high school, which is where I have lunch.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they do that at the junior high. It's like there are more people that eat together. But just having a lunch buddy or something probably would have been a little more helpful for me, and just being more intentional. And I think part of my mindset was like, well, I'm new here and I'm the first year teacher. They should be seeking me out. Which they don't remember that you're a first year teacher. They're too busy doing their own things, which is
that's good.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's it's kind of, well, first of all, that definitely was more of a circumstantial thing for you, definitely. And also with the middle school, your choir room just happened to be in a separate building.
Yeah.
It was like in a portable.
It was in a portable. I can count on my hand how many times my admin came out, and that's not shedding them in a bad light at all. But I think it's just kind of the concept of out of sight, out of mind. Since I'm not in the building at all, I'm sure they just kind of forget that I'm there.
Yeah. I think that's just, and that just goes to show that there are going to be, whether it's a situation like that, or not, there are just going to be things that you're going to have to shoulder as your own responsibility to go out and make a change for your benefit. And I think it's healthy to think of it as kind of like an investment, or like what you were saying in terms of your admin and everything, and people in the office and other teachers, is like, the effort that you put in to pour into them is going to eventually, even if not immediately, it'll eventually be reflected onto you. And I understand, I kind of was thinking about too, like it's so easy to look at how, at schools, I mean, the social media pages and the newsletters and the announcements, they're always talking about athletics. I mean, it's so, and I don't think athletics, that department, they wouldn't even have to really do anything, and people would still be reaching out to them to know and announce stuff, because that's just the way it is.
Well, any football team, any high school football team can do terribly, have like a terrible, like just so bad.
Yeah.
Like haven't won a single game.
Yeah.
And there will be religious supporters.
Yeah. I mean, that's what pep rallies are for, basically. And that's just the way it is. And so it's probably going to be up to you. I mean, there have been times where I, even at Hardin Simmons, me or someone in choir, we have to deliberately reach out to people in our, marketing department or something like that to tell them, hey, choir's doing this, and this, so that they can then share that with the university. I'm sure the athletic department doesn't have to try nearly as hard for all. I'm sure they have people closely monitoring all that activity. So, and that's just one example of, it's not always going to, I wish it was easier to kind of stay connected in that way, but sometimes just have to, you're going to have to shoulder that responsibility and put in a little extra work so that you're known and that people are aware of what you're doing. But again, it's an investment, and that's just something you got to do.
Yeah. One more thing, just to make it even, because there's 3 and 3, recruitment, or just like retention. I kind of wanted to do a lot more events, social events, with my groups, but I didn't really know where to start. And just the lack of a budget kind of scared me a little bit. So I guess one thing I wish I would have done better was, I don't know, just being better about having more social events or something. And going back to the choir queen, she talks about, she actually had a session at TMEA this past February about how to recruit, retain, and rebuild a program. And she talks about how, like, you have to have 3 concerts a year and 3 social events a year, to like keep that program and keep that program, that's what I was about to say, program strong, and give more people involved in it. And so I think she said she has one event that's the beginning of the year, back to school bash type of thing, where they do something fun, maybe go to a like prime time type of thing, or a main event. The second event is like girl/boy related, so the girls have their own outing, and I think she took her girls to go see a movie. They rented out a movie theater, and they all went and saw a movie together. And then the boys have their own separate event that they're not required to go to at all. And then the third one is the end of year party. So each student has at least 2 opportunities to go to an event, or 3, I guess. They have so many opportunities to just socialize, which I think is really important. So next year, I'm gonna definitely try and do better about that.
Cool. And again, that's like going back to having an outline, for the whole year, and planning on what you want to do. Okay. Well, are there any other thoughts you have just as a final wrap up of the school year? And, how do you feel just knowing that you finished, that you did it?
If I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't feel like it hasn't really clicked yet.
Yeah.
Right now, it just feels like I'm on this feels like I'm on Christmas break.
Yeah.
Like I'm going. I'm still in the mindset of like I'm going back to school soon, which in reality I'm not going back until August. So.
Well, it's kind of funny too. I kept telling Kara last week, oh, well, just wait. Once you get to sleep in every day next week, then you'll feel like you made it. But now we have a new puppy that
we haven't been able to really sleep in.
Yeah.
I've been up at 7 a.m.
Yeah, to take her outside for potty training. So, but that's okay. Okay, well, I think that's kind of a good place to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Again, sorry this episode was a little bit different, and sorry if it seemed like we were just kind of all over the place, just, talking about a lot of different things. But I think, kind of what we did in this episode is actually still a good example of, what's healthy for you to do. Just take some time to reflect, on the year now that it's done. Just think, kind of like what we just did, through conversation. What are the 3 things that you're proud of that you did this year?
Yeah.
What are 3 things that going into the year you feel like you weren't sure about, or that you didn't know how well you were going to do, and then now that you're done, you did do them? Or what are the things that you feel like you grew on? And then what are 3 things that you think you could have done better? Or maybe a better way to put it is that you think you should focus more on next year, because obviously we could always do better, and it's really easy to it's healthy to always feel like you could do better and to work towards that, but also don't be afraid to encourage yourself, and to, again, going back to what we said earlier, compare yourself to you, not to anyone else. It is not a race, it is a marathon. Okay, well, it's kind of late, so we're actually gonna kind of wind down and head to bed here.
Kind of late. It's midnight.
Yeah, it is midnight. So we're actually heading to San Antonio tomorrow to hear a performance of an arrangement I did.
Woohoo.
So yeah, that's gonna be really fun. So thanks again for joining us for this episode. We'll be back next week, and it'll be on Monday as usual, and we will see y'all then.
Bye.
Bye bye.